A delicious French onion soup that tastes just like the classic, but is completely vegetarian. Sally that girl in the kitchen. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sally that girl in the kitchen. In today's episode, I'm going to teach you how to make a French onion soup, but vegetarian style. Yes, we're going to be making a French onion soup without using any meat to make that delicious broth. But let me tell you, you're not going to miss the meat. You're not even going to believe that there's no meat in this French onion soup. It's going to have that classic gruyère melt on top, that delicious floating piece of French bread, and of course, that delicious onion soup inside that is going to taste almost beefy. You're not going to believe there's no meat in this. I'm going to teach you how to achieve a delicious flavor without having to add any meat. So I'm super excited to teach you how to make it. Let's not wait another second and let's get started. For today's recipe, you will need about 8 yellow onions, or the equivalent of 4 pounds. Of course, this weight is while still unpeeled. A half a cup of extra virgin olive oil, an occasional splash of water as needed while we're browning the onions, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of black pepper, a small bunch of fresh thyme, 3/4 of a cup of sherry, 8 cups of mushroom broth. Yes, you heard me right, mushroom broth. That will be 64 ounces of the mushroom broth. And then 4 cups or 32 ounces of water, 3 9-gram sized parve beef flavored stock cubes. In other words, these are completely vegetarian. They're just beef flavored, but they have absolutely no meat in them. And that would be a total of 27 grams of these beef flavored stock cubes. And you'll also need 1/8 of a cup of either low sodium soy sauce, or you could use coconut aminos instead if you don't like using soy sauce. Trust me on this, the combination of flavors is going to taste meaty, which is crazy. You'll also want 6 half-inch rounds of French bread, which is about 1/3 of a loaf, 1 clove of garlic, which is optional, and 8 ounces of a vegetarian gruyere cheese, of course, one that doesn't contain any animal rennet. You will also need a bread knife, a silicone spatula or spoon, a ladle, a cutting board, and a chef's knife. And you'll need a few wet measuring cups. And you'll also need a tray. I wrapped mine in aluminum foil. I'm going to be using a small tray in my toaster oven, or you can use a regular tray and toast your bread in the oven. And of course, you'll need some oven mitts. And I like to tie up my little bunch of thyme with some cooking twine. And I'm just going to show you the 2 options I mentioned before. So I'm going to be using the low sodium soy sauce, but if not, you can use cocoa aminos instead, and it'll be just as yummy. You'll also need a heavy pot. I'm going to be using a Dutch oven, but any pot with a nice heavy bottom will do. And you'll need some oven-safe bowls. I'm going to be making 6 soups today, and I just love when I get to crack these out because I find them adorable with their handle. They're just so perfect for French onion soup. And I've placed them on top of a nice heavy tray because there could be some spills, and this way we keep our oven nice and clean. Plus, it's easier to transport our soup in and out of the oven. It will be heavy, but it's worth it. So now that we have all of our ingredients and tools together, let's get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is grab your 4 pounds of yellow onions, and we're going to peel them, and then we're going to slice them thin. Then just place your Dutch oven or heavy soup pot on your stove, and to it you're going to add a half a cup of extra virgin olive oil. Then just bring over your thinly sliced onions. That's about 4 onions right there. Then I'm going to bring over my other 4, and we're just going to add those right into the pot. Yes, it's a lot of onions, but these are going to reduce and they're going to create so much flavor, well worth it. So now just turn on the heat of your stove to medium. That's the heat we're going to be cooking the onions and the soup at. And then just come on in and give it all a little bit of stir. You want to distribute that extra virgin olive oil. Make sure all of the onions get some love. And then just give the pot some time to start heating up. We're just going to let those sit there a bit and let them sweat. So we'll come back to these in a minute. But while that is heating up, what we're going to do is we're going to cut 6 half-inch rounds of our French bread. This appears a little bit larger than it really is, so don't go thicker than about half an inch. And actually, let's go in and give our onions a little bit of attention because they're steaming up, and this is perfect. This is what we want. So when we notice that the bottom of the pan gets a little brown, we add in just a little bit of liquid, and then using our silicone spatula or spoon, we're just going to scrape off that little bit of brown at the bottom of the pan, and that creates incredible flavor, and it's going to help these onions caramelize. So the water really aids in the process. So every so often you're going to come over and stir it, check for some brown spots, add a splash, and keep going. So now's a good time to toast your bread one side, then bring it out, and then you want to go back and toast the other side. But what you're going to do is halfway through that second side, you're going to bring out the bread and you're going to grab your optional garlic clove and you're going to very lightly give it a little love, only on that top side. Then pop them back in the oven for a minute or 2 just to finish toasting them and to make sure you get rid of that raw garlic flavor. Now let's go back to check on our onions. They're looking beautiful. You see the little brown spots at the bottom of the pan. We love those. We add a little splash of water and then we just remove those spots. But what we're doing is adding color and flavor to our onions, and you get the process. This process to brown our onions and get them where we want to be takes 45 minutes in total. And so just come in and add a little splash of water whenever you see some browning and whenever you think it needs it. And then it's going to cook for 45 minutes. And now is a good time to preheat your oven to 350 degrees while those onions are still cooking. And now it's almost 45 minutes. I'm going to add another little splash and just get rid of those last bits. Not get rid of them really, just add them in for flavor. And then I'm just going to give it a nice stir. And you see we got a lot of that brown stuff going on and we love that. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we take advantage of all of that. And then these are looking good. These are looking ready. It's been about 45 minutes. We've deglazed the pan quite a few times, adding water as needed. We've gotten those onions to develop a beautiful color. They smell amazing. I think we're good to go. It's time to move on. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bring over our mushroom broth. Yes, mushroom has very much that umami taste, and when we combine it with the rest of the ingredients, it's going to really taste meaty. So I'm using 2 boxes, 64 ounces. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that second box and I'm going to fill that box with water because I want to add 1 box worth of water. So 32 ounces of water. I went ahead and filled that. And then I'm just going to add that in. And this is going to be the base of our soup, and it's going to complement those onions. And then by adding in the 27 grams of beef flavored stock cubes, it is really going to give this soup a beefy flavor. Now we'll add a half a teaspoon of black pepper and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. That's all it's going to need. And then remember that thyme we tied up? We're going to throw that right in, and we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of sherry. Then I'm just going to go in and give this all a quick little stir. And then I'm going to add my either soy sauce or coconut aminos. So this will not make it taste like soy or like coconut, but it really elevates that umami beefy flavor that we really love in a French onion soup. And by using the mushroom broth and those cubes that have a beefy flavor and adding the soy, it's really going to taste meaty. You're going to be so impressed. So now we're just going to bring this back up to a simmer. And what we want to do is just allow the flavors to marry and just bring it up to a slow boil. We just want to cook off that alcohol and just get all those flavors to come together. That delicious thyme will infuse our soup. And then once it's come to a low boil and we've let it simmer for about 10 minutes, we're going to remove our thyme and we're going to turn our heat off. And our soup itself is ready. We're going to take it off the heat. And then, of course, we're going to move on to filling our bowls so that we can pop these in the oven. And this is going to be absolutely delicious because already it smells incredible. So very carefully, because our soup is hot, we're going to use a ladle and we're going to fill these pretty high. I like to go all the way up. I'm actually going to turn the angle of my camera so that you can see me filling them over the soup pot itself. I'm going to add a little bit more in a sec. So see, this way we get a better view. And then we just want to make sure we get lots of broth and lots of yummy onions. I want lots of onions in every bowl. There's nothing worse than getting a French onion soup and it having hardly no onions in it. I love a lot of onions in my soup. And then we just want to fill that really well, pretty much to the top of the bowl. Once it's filled, I'm going to place it on my tray and I'm going to go ahead and repeat that and fill all 6 bowls. And I will have a little bit of soup left over, which is perfectly fine. No one's going to be angry about having to have that because it's delicious even without the topping. So remember those beautiful 1/2-inch rounds of French bread that we toasted? You want to make sure if you use the garlic, you want the garlic side up to come in contact with the cheese. It gives almost like a garlic bread feel to it. But of course, as I said, you could have also omitted the garlic completely if you don't want it. And look at how gorgeous these look already. But of course, we're going to bring over our 8 ounces of Gruyère cheese. And I've sliced those pretty thin. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover that bread that is floating ever so beautifully on top of that delicious broth we created full of onions. And I just want to try to cover the bread completely. And then of course the classic French onion soup will have a little bit of that cheese dripping off the side. So it's okay if it hangs over just a bit. Those are actually my favorite parts, those little pieces of cheese that just drip down the side of the bowl. They get all crispy in the oven. Yum, yum, yum. So I was able to cover all 6 of my bowls with that 8-ounce wedge of cheese. I did buy 2, so I'm not upset that I have extra cheese. But 8 ounces was the perfect amount to cover all 6 of these beautiful bowls. Look how beautiful they are. They're already kind of melting down the side just from the heat of the soup itself. And when we put this in the oven, it's going to become unreal. So now we're going to place it in the oven, and what we're going to do is we're going to close our oven, and I'm going to switch my oven to broil because I want the heat to come from the top, and this is just going to take a few minutes. I'm not going to broil it all the way through because I'm not serving all of them right now, just one for me. So I'm going to set my timer to 4 minutes, but I'm not going to walk away. And then after 4 minutes, I'm going to bring it out, and normally I'd give it another minute or 2 because I like it to get really toasty, but I'm going to do that right before I serve these later tonight. And look at how absolutely gorgeous they look. And you see how some of that cheese drips down the sides. It almost needs to look a little messy to be a really yummy French onion soup, which is why I use that tray underneath. And let me tell you, it is super heavy to take out of the oven once it's full. So use extra caution not to burn yourself or get some assistance if you need it. But let me tell you, it's all worth the effort because look at how gorgeous these look. I cannot stop admiring them. First of all, that melty cheese, that delicious, delicious toasty bread, that yummy, yummy soup, and the incredible amount of onions in each of these bowls. The smell is intoxicating. It is absolutely delicious. I cannot wait to break into one of these. You know that I'm going to have one, and I'm so excited. So I'm going to place it on a plate so that I don't make a huge mess. And look at that broth. Tell me that doesn't look like a classic French onion. The color is even perfect. I'm just going to take a little taste of that broth. Yep. It worked out beautifully. It definitely has that beefy flavor, and you saw there's no meat in this at all. This is a dairy dish, of course, because of the cheese it has on top, but it's perfectly vegetarian. No meat whatsoever. Absolutely yummy, filled with onions. Absolutely delish. So good. Really, it is super, super good. It's very, very close to an original French onion soup with that beefy flavored broth, but with no meat in it whatsoever. This is perfect for someone who's vegetarian, for someone who is kosher and cannot mix meat and cheese, or if you're just avoiding meat. It is absolutely divine. Perfection. That French bread, the cheese, the broth, the onions, all of it. So good. So how crazy good does this French onion soup look? Yet it is vegetarian. I'm telling you, until you taste it, you're not going to believe it. By using that mushroom stock instead of using beef, and by adding that touch of soy and those beef cubes that are not beef, but they're beef flavored, we still get a broth that's super beefy in flavor without any actual meat in it. And of course, when you're ready to serve them, you're just going to stick those beautiful soup bowls back into the oven for a minute or two. Of course, remember to bring them to room temperature if you refrigerate them. And then, of course, you get that golden, bubbly top. Oh my, so, so good, so impressive. And you saw how easy they were to make, filled with that delicious broth, tons of onion, and of course, that classic gruyere melt on top. So if you've enjoyed today's recipe and you're not already subscribed here on YouTube, please subscribe and touch the little notification bell so that you get notified whenever I put out a new recipe video. And if you're not following me on social media, please be sure to follow Sally That Girl in the Kitchen on Facebook, Instagram, and on Pinterest. And you can find me as Sally That Girl FL on X, Snapchat, and on TikTok. And of course, I have an Amazon shop where I do make a small commission, but a lot of the items that I feature in my videos, I also feature in my Amazon shop. If you see anything you need for your kitchen, you can find that link at the top of the banner of my YouTube channel when you're watching either on a computer or on an iPad, or if not, you can just go to amazon.com/shop/Sally That Girl in the Kitchen. And if you forget where to find it, you could always message me. And of course, if you make this dish, I want to see it. Send me a message, send me a picture. I love hearing from you. I really love your reactions and when you make my dishes yourself and you enjoy them. So thank you so much for sharing those with me. And of course, thank you so much for watching, because I love that you're here with me. Many of you have been with me from the beginning of this journey. It's been over 3 years at this point, and many of you come back time and time again to watch me. So thank you so, so much for watching. So I know you're going to love this recipe. Trust me. No, better yet, don't trust me. You're going to have to try this recipe yourself. And when you do, let me know how much you love it. Thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Sally That Girl in the Kitchen.